Revenge is good for the soul. I sat at home, waiting for the other shoe to drop. After 9 years of marriage, my wife, Bethany, started going out for girls' nights with her friends. It began as a rare occasion but quickly escalated to 3, sometimes 4, nights a month. Then came the stench of alcohol, the disheveled hair, and the wrinkled clothes. Whenever she stumbled in like that, she always tried to initiate what she called hot sex. At first, I welcomed it, but soon, her behavior started to wear on me. The first time I refused, citing a migraine, she turned cold and distant. The next time, she was so drunk she collapsed after barely making it through the front door. I picked her up, carried her to the bedroom, and undressed her so she could sleep comfortably. As I pulled the sheets over her, she mumbled, "All right, Frank, one more time. My name is James." I froze. My gaze shifted between her and the pillow. My hands clenched as a dark thought flickered through my mind, ending it right then and there. But then I thought about prison. That sobering realization made me stop. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my friend, Tim. "James, I don't want to interfere in your marriage, but I took my date to that new club that just opened. Your wife is here and the way she's acting. You two have some serious problems." Thinking she was just drunk again, I replied, "Yeah, she's out partying with her friends again." I shook my head, already dreading what would happen when she got home. "James, I've never seen a bachelorette party look like this. Want me to send you a few pictures?" Tim asked cautiously. A pit formed in my stomach. I grabbed a bottle of cognac, poured myself a glass, and sat down in the living room. Moments later, my phone chimed. Bethany was draped over some guy on the dance floor. A man, a stranger, had lifted her dress, pressing her panties against her backside with one hand while she shamelessly rubbed against his bulge. I hadn't even finished my first glass before I was pouring a second. My phone chimed again. This time, his hands were gripping her ass, and they were engaged in a deep, passionate kiss, tongues entangled. My grip tightened around the glass. Where could I hide the bodies? Then came another image, his hands slipping deeper into her panties as she held onto his wrists. Another double pour. Then a video. Bethany on her knees with a naked man in front of her. Jenny, her equally unfaithful friend, laughed and asked, "How long are we staying here?" Bethany barely managed to suppress a moan. "I'm not leaving tonight until Ray, Toby, and someone else heat me up again. I get so hot when they do it." Jenny chuckled. "Looks like Cookies is getting another cream pie." Bethany giggled and responded, "As long as James keeps giving me money. I really don't care that he's sitting at home waiting." Laughter erupted around the table. That was the moment my house stopped being my home. I needed to get out. I grabbed my keys, got in my truck, and just drove. I replayed my life in my head, trying to understand why this woman, the one I built a life with, betrayed me so viciously. I wasn't some unremarkable man. At 6 feet 2 inches and 260 pounds, I was strong, well-built, with red hair and sharp features. A few years ago, I had joined a gym, getting into the best shape of my life. It had all been for nothing. I built my company from the ground up. It wasn't extravagant, but it brought in around $2.5 million a year. After taxes, payroll, insurance, and legal fees, I still made a damn good living. But Bethany, she always wanted more. "We need a bigger house to entertain clients. We need a pool so I can stay in shape. I can't be seen driving an old car. I need a housekeeper. We need a personal chef." The more I earned, the more she demanded. Clothes worn only once, luxury vacations, unnecessary expenses. All to maintain her precious social appearance. I hired a private investigator the next day. He was good, damn good. A week later, I sat in his office as he slid a 3-inch thick folder across the desk. "If you plan on watching the DVDs," he said grimly, "I'd recommend pouring yourself a drink first." Inside the folder were flash drives filled with videos and audio recordings. I locked them away in my safe. Then, 2 weeks later, came more proof. Bethany and her trainer, Toby, using a massage table for something far beyond massages. The positions alone were enough to make a porn director take notes. Our sex life had dwindled to nothing. She always had a headache. But her doctor? He wasn't just treating her. He was ensuring she never got pregnant. I had wanted kids. She had made sure I would never get them. It was time to plan my revenge. I needed a divorce strategy that would protect me from financial ruin while ensuring she got exactly what she deserved. Then karma intervened. At the supermarket one evening, I saw a stunning dark-haired woman standing in line. A little girl sat in her cart, clutching a stuffed rabbit. When the cashier ran her card, it was declined, then flagged as stolen. Security approached, treating her like a criminal. Her daughter trembled in fear. "Terry, where is the child support you're supposed to be paying? What do you mean you're not paying anymore? What do you mean you found a job in Mexico? She's your daughter too." She slammed her phone down, body shaking with rage. The little girl clung to her, sobbing. Then the police arrived, and with them a CPS worker. As the woman pulled her daughter closer, the CPS worker reached out. That's when I stepped in. "I wouldn't touch her if I were you." One of the officers turned to me. "James? Bill? Why are you harassing my housekeeper?" I said smoothly. "Housekeeper," he repeated. "She came here to buy supplies for my home. I forgot to give her my card, so she tried using her own, the one meant for child support. Then she found out her ex is fleeing to Mexico. He must have reported the card stolen to screw her over." Bill hesitated. "James, you sure about this?" I nodded. "I'll cover her groceries. And Bill, if you need a statement, have your guys call me first." The CPS worker scowled, but Bill exhaled. "Fine." As I paid for the groceries, the woman looked at me with teary eyes. "Why did you do that?" I smiled. "Because I know what it feels like to be betrayed." That night, as I drove home, a thought settled in my mind. Bethany had no idea what was coming. Then I turned to the CPS worker and smiled. "I suggest you call your boss before you do anything else." "James, is all of this true?" Bill asked. "Bill, why would I lie about my housekeeper?" I replied. Bill looked at her, then back at me. "I'm satisfied. However, I still need to take the card. Maybe we can track him down using the information on it." I glanced at the CPS employee. After she informed her boss of what had happened and passed on my information, her face turned pale. Yes, ma'am, I understand. I will definitely let him know. I will apologize to him. Sorry for disturbing you." She just stared at me with wide eyes. The look she gave me was priceless. "I'm very sorry, sir. Please accept my apologies." She then added, "You are donating $1,000 to the charity event. Make it $2,000. And tell Sarah that we have a deal. You see, I care about children and families who are struggling to survive." I walked over to my cart and asked the woman in a businesslike tone, "Are you done?" "No, sir. I'm putting both carts together." "Sorry," she said. "I'm sure no one deserves to be treated like that." As we headed for the door, I told the manager about how she had been treated. He looked at the cashier and didn't seem too happy. I hinted that I might look for another place to shop. He kept apologizing and then went over to the cashier. When we got outside, I asked the woman where her car was. She said she didn't have one. "Well, I think all of this will fit in the back of the truck. You load, and I'll drive." In the light, I was able to get a better look at her face, and I liked what I saw. Her ass and legs didn't look too bad either. She pointed me to a building that should have been demolished long ago. In front of the entrance, drug addicts were sitting, and one of them had passed out right by the doorway. "You live here?" I asked, looking at the building. I had a bad feeling. She nodded. "This is all I can afford without a job. I get a small social security check for my daughter, and that's it." She was staring out the window, unable to look at me. I locked the truck. She led me up to the third floor to a door that had been kicked in. "I see you've been robbed." "No, it's always been like this. The place isn't locked because the landlord just collects rent but refuses to fix the building," she said, looking down at the floor. "Where does the child sleep?" She led me to a small bedroom. In the corner, there was a large pile of clothes. "We sleep on this pile at night." I couldn't believe my eyes. "Is there anything here you'd like to keep?" I asked, looking around. She dug through the pile of clothes and pulled out a small photo album. It had pictures of her daughter as a child. Just this. I picked up the little girl and carried her into the living room. Look around and make sure this is everything you want, I said. There was a noise behind me. When I turned around, I saw a man standing there. What are you doing? That sweet ass belongs to me. I had had enough of this place and the people living in it. A few moments later, the woman heard sounds resembling someone moving furniture, followed by a loud noise of something breaking. She peeked around the kitchen corner and saw that the guy wasn't moving. She noticed a hole in the wall where I had rammed his head through. That's the landlord, she said quietly. Looks like it's time to go, I smiled. After letting out some anger, I felt better than I had in weeks. Once I got them into the truck, I drove them to an extended stay hotel where businessmen visiting the city usually stayed. Do you have any available rooms? I asked, handing over my business card. Room 207, second floor. When you get out of the elevator, turn right. The clerk returned my business card along with the key card, and we headed up. When we walked in, she saw the large room and just froze, looking around. Maggie, go watch TV in that room and close the door. Mommy needs to thank this nice man. Maggie ran off and shut the door. My name is Cheryl, she said, starting to undress. Cheryl, I'm not that kind of guy. When I realized what she meant, I placed $500 on the shelf. There's a clothing store across the street. You and Maggie need new clothes. She cut me off when she saw my ring. Whatever you're thinking, I don't mess with married men. I looked into her eyes and realized I was starting to fall in love with this woman. Sometimes, everything changes. Eat properly and play with Maggie in the bath. I'll be in touch. I had a lot to think about and a plan to put together. I had been turning it over in my head for quite some time. First, I needed to get rid of my unfaithful wife. Toby stepped out of his house and ran into two very large men. Going somewhere? They smiled and shoved him back inside. Why don't we sit down? They pushed him onto the couch. You've been a very bad boy, so now someone wants to have a word with you. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. One of the men let me in. Hey boss, was all he said. I stepped inside, looked at the loser sitting on the couch, and took a seat in the chair across from him. Hello, Toby. I thought it was time we had a face-to-face talk. Do you have any idea who I am? Toby nodded, then pissed himself. Well, I guess you do, I chuckled softly. I heard you and my wife have been doing the fmambo together. That's dangerous for your health, don't you know? His whole body started trembling. Want me to tell you what's going to happen next? I'm sorry, Mr. Feeney. I had no idea who she was. She never told me until recently. You have to believe me. I don't want to die. Then came the tears and sobs. I nodded to one of the men. He slapped Toby across the face a few times to shut him up. I'll never see her again. I'll leave and never bother you or her ever again. Please, I had to smile slightly. Do you think I need this, Toby? I don't understand. What do you want, Mr. Feeney? I smirked. I'm here to make you an offer. Toby? Bethany sneered, her voice dripping with venom. So fuck off, asshole. You never deserved a woman like me. I've already taken off my clothes and everything else that was in this dump. I just wanted to see your face when you begged me to take you back in tears. I chuckled, shaking my head as I dialed a number. Hey, she's on her way out. You can come in and start changing the locks. Tomorrow we'll install the security cameras. Bethany's expression twisted in confusion. What the hell are you laughing at, you stupid fuck? She demanded. Ignoring her, I made another call. Hello. Is this the nanny service? I need a housekeeper who can start tomorrow and a nanny who enjoys playing with kids. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Bethany crossed her arms, trying to regain control of the situation, but I was far from done. Switch me to speakerphone. Please, I said into my phone. Is this the administrator of St. Mary's Hospital? My name is Mr. Feeney. I have several compromising videos and photos of Dr. Granger harassing a patient, my wife. You can talk to my lawyer when we sue your collective asses. Have a great evening. Bethany's mouth dropped open. She tried to form words, but I raised my hand to silence her. I dialed another number. All right, Mark, relax. Yes, social media first, then the contact list. Thanks again. Bethany's face turned beet red. What the hell does all this mean, dumbass? Why are you laughing? Her sarcasm barely covered her panic. Just taking care of some long overdue business, slut. I smirked. Though calling you a slut is an insult to professionals. At least they get paid for their services. A few minutes later, Bethany's phone started blowing up with calls and text messages. I gestured toward it. I think that's for you, my dear. She hesitated before answering, her fingers shaking. Hello, Grandma? Even from where I stood, I could hear her grandmother screaming through the phone. Bethany's eyes widened. What video? Did you hear the audio that goes with it? I'll call you back. She hung up just as the front door swung open. Her older sister stormed in, fury blazing in her eyes. Without hesitation, she grabbed Bethany by the shirt with one hand and slapped her hard across the face with the other. You stupid bitch, she seethed. I told you not to do this. Now the whole family, all our friends, and everyone in this town knows about it. She kept hitting Bethany until she collapsed onto the floor in tears. I stepped outside, watching as cars pulled up. Her entire family was here. Nearby friends simply walked over. I turned to the gathering crowd and called out, try not to break anything. I'm out of here. That night, I got myself a hotel room, knowing there was no sleep to be had at home. With a 12-pack of beer and a submarine sandwich, I settled in to watch the news. The screen lit up with footage of the massive brawl outside my house. It seemed every cop in the city had been called in, along with 3 ambulances for the injured. The next morning, I checked out and drove to the extended stay hotel. When I knocked on Cheryl's door, she looked incredible, and so did Maggie. I handed Cheryl a copy of my finalized divorce papers while I played with Maggie for a bit. Cheryl looked up at me, tears brimming in her eyes, a smile tugging at her lips. I picked Maggie up in my arms. How about we go out for something to eat? What do my 2 beautiful ladies say to that? Cheryl kissed me softly, and Maggie planted a kiss on my cheek before chiming in. How about Chuck E. Cheese? We all laughed but ultimately decided on an Italian restaurant where Maggie could still get her pizza. As we sat there, I leaned in and whispered something in Maggie's ear. She grinned widely and nodded, while Cheryl raised an eyebrow, clearly curious. Then I dropped to one knee. My divorce was finalized yesterday. Would you and Maggie make me the happiest man in the world and marry me? Cheryl covered her face with her hands, trying to contain her emotions. Maggie walked up to her and whispered loudly, Don't make me push you, Mom. Just say yes. I already gave him permission. Cheryl finally pulled herself together and shouted, Yes, before launching herself at me, knocking us both to the floor in a flurry of laughter and kisses. Maggie found it amusing and jumped on top of us. The entire restaurant erupted in applause. 5 days later, we stood in St. Peter's Church, ready to say our vows. Cheryl had no family, and my parents had passed away 5 years ago. But then, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Bethany's parents stood there. Her father stepped forward, his expression solemn yet kind. If you'd like, I'd be honored to take that place. He smiled sadly. Despite everything that happened, we still consider you family, James. And your beautiful bride, too. I glanced at Cheryl, who smiled and nodded. We embraced. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Your blessing means a lot to us. At the altar, Maggie proudly carried the rings. She wore a beautiful white dress with tiny angel wings pinned to her back. Cheryl appeared, holding Paul's hand, looking like she was floating toward me. As we exchanged vows, the priest finally introduced us as husband and wife. And then, we heard Maggie exclaim, Finally, I have a daddy. Bethany never made it to the Cayman Islands. Instead, she found herself living in her parents' basement. Meanwhile, Cheryl, Maggie, and I eagerly awaited the birth of our son. Just 2 more months to go. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next video.